the Physian professor observed as the students filed in. The multitude of eyes scattered across his face blinked in a rhythmic sequence. His translucent red skin gleamed with moisture under the dim light cast by the projection hologram behind him, which displayed the Federation symbol. "Greetings, all students. I am glad you have chosen to take this diplomacy with humanity class." He moved very little. His biology wasn't conducive to lots of movement. However, I will have to outline a little history first. 15 years ago, the Federation extended the hand of diplomacy to humanity once again, 2 centuries after the Soul War. The united conglomerate of human colonies agreed to reopen negotiations. A decade of slow and careful trust-building and very minor joint military operations in the demilitarized zone saw the signing of the first mutual aid pact, allowing human aid ships to cross into Federation space and Federation research vessels to cross into human space. Only in the past 5 years have we seen the slow shift of political stances. Humanity has become more open with allowing Federation ships into its space, though the Sol system still remains off-limits, guarded by the 4 horsemen. In the same manner, the Federation has seen humanitarian aid ships and trade vessels almost everywhere within its space. There have even been reports of human battle fleets hunting pirates in Federation space. The professor stopped and blinked again, all of his eyes closing at seemingly random intervals and opening again in sequence. This has necessitated the opening of a course on how to perform diplomacy with humans, which is why you are here. Now, let us begin with one of the most critical things: how not to kill yourself. This may sound easy until you understand that humans seem to eat all kinds of toxic food for fun or pleasure. The class seemed a little shocked, though they had expected something like this. There were rumors on the extranet about humans at the universities on the very edge of Federation space accidentally poisoning classmates with food or drink. The professor opened the first slide, a simple image of a square of some kind of brown substance. This is chocolate, a human consumable. They consume it for pleasure. Most humans consume it in small amounts. Overconsumption by humans can cause long-term health problems. However, to specific members of the Federation, it is a near-lethal poison. Ashcott, for example, only need to consume less than 0.2 of a gram before the reaction is lethal. We Physians can consume it, but the cocoa, which is the primary ingredient, is best described as an extreme drug, causing highly realistic audiovisual hallucinations, an inability to differentiate between reality and fantasy, and sedated movements. It is also highly addictive. Thus, it is banned on most Federation worlds. The professor looked up at the slide, and a shudder caused his membranous skin to ripple. He moved on to the next slide, which contained several images. One appeared to be soup, another some kind of sauce-covered cubes with white strands next to it. The third image was of a mush wrapped in a white-beige item, and the final image was of a cooked meat product with some kind of brownish sauce smeared on it and sat atop vegetables. Now, who can tell me what is the commonality between these 4 human food items? There were some tentative raised hands. You. The professor pointed at a sea-green Physian. They all contain a meat product? The student asked in trepidation. That isn't incorrect, but not the answer I'm looking for. What about you? He said, pointing at a Tyrol who was at the back of the hall. They are all lethal to 1 or more Federation species, the student guessed. The professor sighed. Not incorrect, but not specific enough. Each and every one of these meals contains a poison known as capsaicin. The class looked shocked, glancing at one another. These were human foods. Why did they have poisons in them? Humans ingest this toxin in tiny amounts mixed in with their food to change the flavor. It is described as creating a burning sensation. It has highly irregular effects on Federation members. He moved on to the next slide, which was of most of the Federation species. Let us start with the most lethal reaction. The tyrol have a violent autoimmune reaction that causes their bodies to start liquefying as long as it is in contact with a substance. They are lucky that their outer shell protects them from that reaction if touching it. The professor gestured at a very ill-looking tyrol on the slide. Ashcott, on the other hand, seem utterly immune to the effects of capsaicin, describing it only as a mild irritant and avoiding food with it in. The Jurdex suffer extreme vomiting and loss of bowel control for several hours after consuming it. If not treated or handled with large amounts of liquid, it can cause death through dehydration. As for Physians, the results are best described as an almost instantaneous and highly significant rise in body temperature. When consumed normally, this can be lethal. However, it can also be administered in tiny amounts to counteract the effects of hypothermia. Thus, most medical teams that expect to be treating Physians or hypothermia often carry a small ampoule of the substance. It is considered a B-class medical substance and requires a license to transport through Federation space. The class did the equivalent of shaking their heads. Just like humans, to consume something that inflicts pain and can kill other species. The first task I am setting for you is to catalogue all human foods that are toxic to Federation species and the effects they have on them, as well as prepare a list of human foods that are safe for the majority of Federation species to consume, listing which species can and cannot consume them and why. The professor moved on to the next slide. This one contained a strange triangle shape made of different colors with what appeared to be foods on it. Humans require a complex diet of meats, vegetables, and starch-based foods. Humans can also survive without meat or even any animal products. However, very few choose to do so. Humans have strict regulations on animal husbandry, preventing inhumane practices and cruelty to the animals under their care. This image shows the importance of various foods. As you can see, they require starches and vegetable foods far more than other foods. However, due to human evolution, they derive the most pleasure from sugar and fat-containing foods. This is because when they were competing for survival, these foods were very energy-dense, which helped with survival. The professor gestured at the pyramid. Their scientists developed this graphic many centuries ago to aid in teaching spawnlings human food requirements. It, however, does not explain what humans enjoy and what food they prefer to consume, as this is dependent on each human. Humans also have a wide array of cultures, some of which have specific dishes that they enjoy or are reserved for specific events. It is critical that you either present a meal that is universal across all of humanity, however rare that is, or create something that is generally palatable to all backgrounds you are hosting. Humans, however, are always keen on trying new types of food. The professor looked at his notes and nodded. Please ensure that you complete your tasks and have them emailed to me before the next lecture begins. The next lecture will be on the topic of human intoxicants and drugs. Please do not be late. The class began to disperse, students chattering animatedly among themselves about the peculiarities of human cuisine. A young Tyrol named Ramag approached the professor, his outer shell reflecting the ambient light. "Professor, I have a question," Ramag said, his voice a series of melodic clicks and whistles. "Yes, Ramag? What is it?" the professor responded, his multiple eyes focusing on the Tyrol. "Why do humans consume substances that are harmful or even lethal to other species?" "It seems illogical," Ramag asked, his antennae twitching with curiosity. The professor considered the question for a moment. Humans are a complex species. Their consumption of substances like capsaicin and chocolate is rooted in their unique evolutionary history and cultural practices. They have developed a tolerance for these substances, and in some cases, they even find pleasure in the mild pain or euphoria they induce. This behavior is not entirely unique. Other species have similar practices with different substances. Understanding these differences is crucial for effective diplomacy. Ramag nodded thoughtfully. I see. Thank you, Professor. As Ramag left, the professor couldn't help but reflect on the challenge ahead. Teaching these students to navigate the intricacies of human culture and behavior was no small task, but it was essential for the continued peace and cooperation between the Federation and humanity. The next lecture began with the students eagerly awaiting the professor's arrival. The room was abuzz with anticipation. The Physian professor entered, his many eyes blinking in unison this time, a sign of the seriousness of today's topic. Welcome back, students. Today, we delve into a subject that is equally fascinating and hazardous: human intoxicants and drugs. The hologram flickered to life, displaying images of various human substances: alcohol, tobacco, and other narcotics. Humans have a long history of using substances to alter their mental and physical states. These substances can range from mildly stimulating to highly addictive and dangerous. Understanding these can be critical when engaging in diplomatic or social interactions with humans. The first image was of a clear liquid in a glass. This is ethanol, commonly known as alcohol. It is perhaps the most widely consumed intoxicant among humans. In small quantities, it acts as a social lubricant, reducing inhibitions and fostering a sense of camaraderie. However, in larger amounts, it impairs judgment, coordination, and can lead to aggressive behavior or unconsciousness. The effects vary greatly among individuals and even more so among different species. He pointed to a list of species and their reactions to ethanol. For instance, the ashcot experience severe allergic reactions, while the gerdek can tolerate it in small amounts but risk severe liver damage with prolonged exposure. Physians, on the other hand, metabolize it extremely quickly, often resulting in no noticeable effect unless consumed in very large quantities. The next slide showed a dried plant wrapped in paper. This is tobacco, often consumed through smoking. It contains nicotine, a highly addictive substance. While it induces a sense of relaxation and mild euphoria in humans, it is a potent neurotoxin for many Federation species. Even second-hand exposure can be dangerous. A third image showed a variety of pills and powders. These are examples of controlled substances, ranging from stimulants to depressants and hallucinogens. Each of these has a profound impact on the human nervous system and can be extremely addictive. For non-humans, the effects can be unpredictable and often lethal. The professor paused, letting the information sink in. Your task for this lecture is to research and document the various human intoxicants and their effects on different Federation species. Additionally, prepare guidelines for safe interaction and emergency protocols for exposure. One student raised a tentacle, seeking permission to speak. Professor, how do humans justify the use of such dangerous substances? The professor smiled, a rare expression for his species. Humans have a complex relationship with these substances, often balancing the desire for pleasure or escape with the potential for harm. Their use is deeply embedded in cultural practices, social norms, and even religious rituals. Understanding this context is key to understanding humanity itself. As the lecture concluded, the students left with a deeper appreciation of the complexities involved in human Federation relations. The Physian professor watched them go, confident that they were one step closer to becoming effective diplomats in a galaxy where understanding and cooperation were the keys to survival.